audio and video settings, please, everyone. Is everything clear? Okay. We can now today's topic is Spring Bean scopes, guys. Not only IOC container creates the Spring Bean class object, it can also keep the object in a scope. Look at. Not only we can create a variable, we can also keep the variable in a scope. Na? If we declare the variable inside the method local scope, if we declare a variable as instance variable object to scope, if we declare the variable, as a static variable class scope, remember? Similarly, we can ask IOC container to create Spring Bean class object and to keep that object in a specific scope. Yes or no? To create that object in specific scope, guys. Here, my dear, getting my point? IOC container can keep Spring Bean class object in different scopes, guys. In different scopes, having different levels of visibility. Right now. Okay. Number 1, singleton. Number 2, prototype. Number 3, request. Number 4, session. Number 5, application. Number 5, WebSocket. These are the 5 scopes, guys. If no scope is specified, by default, every Spring Bean scope is singleton. These 2 scopes can be used in the standalone applications, also in the web applications. These 4 scopes can be used only in the web applications. Yes, that means in web application environment, total how many scopes can be used, guys? In web application environment, total how many scopes can be used, guys? 4 scopes or 6 scopes? 4 scopes or 6 scopes? 4 plus 2. In web application environment, how many scopes can be used for Spring Bean? How many scopes can be used for Spring Bean, right? Yeah, what is the answer? 4 plus 2 is equal to 6. Yeah. How to specify this scope for Spring Bean, guys? In XML-driven environment, scope attribute. We can use scope attribute of bean tag to specify Spring Bean scope. In annotation environment, what is the annotation we have? @scope annotation. @scope annotation to specify the Spring Bean scope. XML-driven configuration, we use scope attribute. In annotation-driven environment, we use scope attribute. Clear, guys? Understood my statement, boss? Convinced, boss? Got the clarity? Super. In XML-driven configuration, see, bean ID LDT, scope attribute. Here is the scope attribute. Any bean tag, scope attribute. In annotation-driven environment, scope annotation, @scope annotation. Like this, you have to specify. Here, for this scope attribute, how many possible values are there? 5. For this scope annotation, how many possible values are there? For this scope attribute, how many possible values are there? 5. For this scope annotation, how many possible values are there? 5 are. 5 are there. Scope is equal to singleton. At the rate scope is equal to scope singleton. Clear, guys? Understood? Scope is equal to singleton. At the rate scope singleton. At the rate scope singleton. Everyone getting my point, boss? IOC container creates single object for Spring Bean class. Singleton means singleton. Single means one. Ton means object. Singleton means single object. Actually, having name singleton, there is a design pattern also, but only just name is matching, both are different. Just name is matching, both are different. Everyone getting my point? Listen. In India, what is the holy place name? Tirupati. Yes, Tirupati. But some human beings also will have a name called Tirupati. Some human beings also will have a name called Tirupati. Okay. Okay. Just holy place name is used as person name. Okay. Yeah, like Simhachalam. Telugu people is aware of this kind of name. All these are the holy place names, guys. But sometimes they will be used as human being names. Singleton Java class, only one object for Java class. Singleton scope, only one object will be created for Spring Bean. Since behavior matching is there, somehow design pattern name is used as scope name. Design pattern is different, scope is different. IOC container creates single object for Spring Bean class and uses that object across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls with the same bean ID. You call ctx.getBean method with the bean ID for 10 times having same bean ID. Having 10 times having same bean ID. Tell me, guys, 10 times same Spring Bean class object will be created or not? Only one object is created and will be reused across the multiple calls given to ctx.getBean method. It will be reused across the multiple requests given to ctx.getBean method. Everyone getting my point, guys? Getting my info? Okay, guys. And this is the behavior of this kind. This is the behavior of this scope. If you are okay with this behavior, use the scope. Otherwise, go for other scope, right? Go for another scope. This is how we have to think. Why only one object? Why multiple? This is the behavior. Mr. Sachin Yadav, Mr. Pawan Kumar Maddi, this is not the way to study the subject. They give facilities having certain behavior. If you like that behavior, take it and use it. If you don't like the behavior, go for other one. Yes, na boss? Java is object oriented. Why not it is procedure oriented? Means what can I do? Scooter is having two-wheeler, right? Scooter is having two wheels. If someone asks me why scooter is not having three wheels, what can I do? There's no meaning in that, right? This is the behavior of the scope. If you like it, go ahead with that. If you like it, go ahead with that. If you don't like it, go for another scope, right now, boss? Wait, it's too early to come to one conclusion. Concentrate first. If you try to access Spring Bean class object whose scope is singleton, By calling ctx.getBean with ID for multiple times, it will return single object. It will return single object for multiple times. Is that clear, guys? Super, guys. If Spring Bean scope, if the scope is singleton scope, the IOC container keeps Spring Bean class object in the internal cache of IOC container to reuse that Spring Bean class object reference across the multiple ctx.getBean method call. How does it is able to use single object across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls? Because it will keep that object in the internal cache. Other day we discussed it, na boss. IOC container keeps Spring Bean class object in the internal cache. Bean ID has the map collection internally. Bean IDs as the keys. Spring Bean class object references as the values, right? That's the reason singleton scope means we are able to enjoy same object across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls. Across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls. Everyone getting my point, guys? If scope is singleton scope, the IOC container keeps Spring Bean class object in the internal cache of IOC container to reuse Spring Bean class object reference across the multiple ctx.getBean method call. Across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls. If no scope is specified for Spring Bean, the default scope is singleton. Knowingly, unknowingly, these many days we are working with the singleton scope. Singleton. Single means one, ton means object. Single means one, ton means object. Overall, so overall, it is the scope. It is the scope that creates the single object. It is the scope that creates the single object. Single means one, ton means object. Super, guys. Public final class Flipkart. On the top of it, what is the scope I kept, guys? Singleton, right? Singleton. Okay, let's see the practicals ones. Okay, let's open this. Let's open. $64. One thing is clear, boss. Scope is singleton means container creates one object for the Spring Bean, keeps that object in IOC container, uses that object across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls, having the same bean ID. But it does not mean it is making the Spring Bean class as a singleton Java class. It never makes class as a singleton Java class, but it gives the behavior by just creating one object for only one object for Spring Boot. Only one object for Spring Boot. Got it, guys? Okay, guys. Now let's take this. Any project you can take, not an issue, guys. Say paste. Pros9. Okay. Array. Final is nowhere related to singleton. Please. Final is related to strategy design pattern. Please, if you don't know Java, keep quiet. Don't create a new concepts. Ashish, is the final is related to single or is the final is related to strategy design pattern? Please, Ram, my dear. Okay. Taking class as Spring Bean scopes. Taking class as final. Is it related to strategy design pattern? Yes, boss. Here, what is there? Array, if you don't mention the scope also, by default, its scope is singleton only, Ram. At the rate scope, singleton. Control plus shift plus. Even for DTDC, DHL, Blue Dot, did I mention scopes, guys? No. But still their scope is singleton. The default scope is singleton only, right? Okay, guys. Tell me. No scope is specified, default scope is singleton. Flipkart FPKT1 is equal to CTX dot get bean FPKT. Next, Flipkart dot class. Flipkart dot class. How many times I called, guys? 2 times. Okay, 2 times. But since the scope is singleton, how many objects will be created by IOC container? 1 object. How many reference variables are created pointing to that object? 2 reference variables, right? 2 reference variables. Sys out, guys. FPKT dot hash code space FPKT dot hash FPKT1 dot hash code. Super. Tell me. Sys out, guys. FPKT double equal to FPKT1 question mark. FPKT double equal to FPKT1. Right click, run as a Java application. Right click, run as a Java application. Check it out. How many objects are created for Flipkart, guys? How many objects are created for Flipkart, guys? 1 object. One time constructor means one time, 1 object, right? Though I called twice, though I called CTX.getBean twice, only 1 object is created. Proof number 1. Both reference variables are pointing to same object. That's why same hash code. If you apply double equal to operator among the 2 reference variables that are pointing to 1 object, among the 2 reference variables that are pointing to 1 object, then we will get true here. Then we will get true there, guys. Then we will get true there, guys. Then we will get true there now, boss. Both reference variables are pointing to same object. Both reference variables are pointing to same object. Clear made here, got it? My theory and practicals are matching or not matching? For one object, any number of reference variables are there. How does object is reused? Because when object is created, first it is kept in internal cache. Check it out. Look at the flow of execution, guys. Look at the flow of execution. Look at the flow of execution. Yeah. Number one, IOC container creation. Number two, Spring Bean configuration file loading and verification. Come on, guys. Number three. Where is number three? I'm giving flow of execution completely, Rababu. Number three. It goes to application context.xml, takes the base package name. Right now, boss? Okay, number four, it goes to that base package. Let us assume remaining beans are not there. Let us assume only one bean is there. Okay. Number four. Number five, it will search for, are there any spring beans in that class? Are there any spring beans in that class whose scope is singleton? Found one. Okay. Number five, found spring beans. Only one. I'm assuming remaining classes are not there. Let us assume they are not there. Right, boss? Number six. Okay, for scope is what? Singleton. If no scope is specified, default scope is also singleton. That is number six. Number seven. Tell me what happened. Flipkart class object creation. Number four. Number five. What is this, guys? Flipkart class object creation. Yeah, in reverse also fine, not a problem. Number five, guys. By seeing this object is created. Five here, hash means reflection. Hash 5 means reflection of some activity. This is my representation. After creating object, it notices the scope as what? Singleton. Okay, once it notices scope as singleton, it will keep that object in internal cache of IOC container. It is keeping that object in internal cache of IOC container. That is number 7. Then we are calling number 8. ctx.getBean method first time called. Number 8. What is the bean ID we passed? FPKT. What is the bean ID we passed? FPKT. It goes to internal cache of IOC container. Number 9. And searches. Is there any spring bean whose bean ID is FPKT? Is already resistant now, boss? Yes. It will collect that object. That is number 10. Super. Number 11. Second time ctx.getBean method is called. Again, it will go to internal cache of IOC container. Searches. Is there any spring bean whose bean ID is FPKT? Super, boss. Whose bean ID is FPKT? Are you understanding my statement? Whose bean ID is FPKT? Is that clear, guys? Second time object is received, boss. Second time the object is received. Same object reference is received second time. Right now, boss? That means what? Since the object is stored in the internal cache of IOC container, the object is able to reuse for multiple times or not. Total how many reference variables are created pointing to that object? One is FPKT1, one is FPKT2. Right now, boss? Okay, once again, see the flow, guys. We run the application. This inside the main method, this line executed. IOC container created. It is collecting the Spring Bean configuration file name and location. Number 3, goes to Spring Bean configuration file, get the base package name to perform component scanning. Super. Goes to that base package. Yes or no, boss? Goes to that base package. Cool, guys. Let us assume all beans are not there. Only Flipkart is there. Flipkart is there, right now, boss? Super. Okay. It goes to Flipkart and searches. Are there any spring beans in that? Yes. Number 5. Are there any spring beans? That too singleton scope spring beans, guys. Are there any singleton scope spring beans? Notice one thing. This is 5. Here also #5 means reflection of the activity. This is my internal representation. This 5, same ra. For this object is created. Then what is the scope it noticed, guys? Singleton scope. So since scope is singleton, it will try to keep object in the internal cache or not. Suppose scope is not singleton, then object will not be kept in the internal cache. Since the scope is singleton, the object is kept in internal cache. Right, boss? The object is kept in internal cache. Right now, boss? Super. Super means super. Then I called. That means what? IOC container is creating Spring Bean class object, not when you call ctx.getBean method. All singleton scope beans will be pre-instantiated. Pre-instantiated the moment IOC container is created. Please remember this. IOC container is not creating Spring Bean class object when you call ctx.getBean method. It is creating all singleton scope object the moment container is created. Right now, boss, only singleton scope. Only singleton scope objects will be pre-instantiated. You ask, you don't ask, the moment IOC container is created, singleton scope objects will be created. You want to believe that? You want to feel that? Just a minute. I commented everything. What is the scope for Spring Beans right now? Singleton only. Run as Java application. Check it out. Still all 4 objects are created. Why? Flipkart scope is what? Singleton. For remaining beans, did I mention any scope? No. No scope means what is the default scope? Singleton. Tell me, guys. Singleton scope beans are created. Singleton scope beans are created when you call ctx.getBean method or when IOC container is created. At the time of IOC container creation. See the numbering also, boss. Calling ctx.getBean is number 8, right? Number 8. Object creation is happening for number 5 step. Object creation is happening for number 5 step. That means it is not creating object when you call ctx.getBean, right? Okay, note, guys. Important note. The IOC container, nothing but application context. Performs pre-instantiation, eager instantiation on the singleton scope Spring Beans. on the singleton scope spring beans and keeps those object references in the internal cache of IOC container. In the internal cache of IOC container. And keeps those object references in the internal cache of IOC container. Okay, guys. Another note. Free or eager instantiation means okay, creating the object for Spring Bean class. Creating the object for Spring Bean class. The moment IOC container is created. The moment IOC container is created. Okay, eager means what? Early raga. Eager to learn early. Eager means early. Everyone understanding my statement? I hope everyone understanding why one object is created across the multiple ctx.getBean method calls with the same bean ID. Because object is kept in internal cache. Why only one object is created and reused? Because object is kept in internal cache. Right now, boss? Super, guys. The singleton scope of singleton Spring Bean is nowhere related to singleton class design pattern. This is very important. That means singleton scope of Spring Bean does not make our bean class as singleton Java class. But it makes the IOC container to create only one object for Spring Bean and to reuse that object by keeping in the internal cache of IOC container. It is not making our Java Spring Bean class as singleton class. See, end effect is same, but process is different. Everyone getting? C is equal to A plus B. Tell me. C is equal to B plus A. Output is same, but formula is different now, boss. Output is same, but formula is different now, boss. The same thing, boss. If we take Java class as singleton class by following rules and regulations given by singleton design pattern, that class also allows us to create only one object. But what is the specialty of singleton scope in Spring Bean? You don't do anything. You take a normal class. You just mention singleton scope. IOC container gives only one object for that class in any situation. Okay, guys. Only one object. Everyone understanding my point? The Java class that allows to create only one object in any situation is called singleton Java class. This is the design pattern. For that one, we should write so many restrictions inside the class. Are we writing any restrictions inside the Spring Bean class? No. But still IOC container is creating how many objects for the class? Only one object. How? Because scope is singleton. So effect is same, but process is different. Right now, boss? Okay, tell me guys, if I, listen, Flipkart, if I want to create manually 10 objects, if I want to create manually 10 objects for fifth class, any restriction is there from Flipkart? Flipkart F1 is equal to new Flipkart. If Flipkart F2 is equal to new Flipkart. Flipkart F3 is equal to new Flipkart. Is there any restriction from my Flipkart side? No. That means, do you think Flipkart is really singleton Java class? No. But when I ask IOC container to create one object for Flipkart, because of the scope singleton, how many objects are created by IOC container? Only one object. So that means, do you think IOC container is making this Flipkart class as singleton Java class, boss? This Flipkart class as singleton Java class, boss? Everyone getting my point here, guys? Class-wise, not singleton class. But by seeing the scope, IOC container is happy to just create only one option. Convinced, my dear? Everyone convinced with this point, my dear? Come on. Okay, now see some points, guys. Though Java class is allowing us to create multiple objects, if you are creating only one object, then that Java class is not called singleton Java class. I hope this point is registered in your brain, guys. Class is allowing to create many objects. You are happy with one object. Do you think it is a singleton class, guys? Do you really think it's a singleton class? Alexa, activate balcony central light. Okay. What is singleton class, you know? People are trying to create many objects, guys. Listen, listen, listen. But class is restricting them to create only one object. That is singleton. Singleton means what? Though you are trying to create lots of objects, but it is saying that, sorry boss, you cannot create many objects. At maximum, you can create only one object. That is singleton class. You take a normal class, you are just happy with one object. Do you think it becomes singleton? Do you really think it becomes singleton, boss? Do you really think it becomes singleton, boss? Okay, I'll tell one example, guys. You are in a library department, right? You are in a library. Array, when you develop class as singleton class, inside the class, logic will be kept to create only one object for that class. That because of that logic, singleton Java class allows us to create only one object. Right now, I didn't develop any serious singleton class anywhere, right? But we are bringing that effect, right? We are bringing that effect. How? Because of singleton scope. Is it the beauty in our was? You don't know how to create singleton Java class, which is a complex process. Still, you can bring the effect through IOC container by taking the scope as singleton. To develop perfect singleton Java class by keeping all restrictions, all permutations and combination based restriction, minimum 5 hours required. Minimum 5 to 6 hours time is required, Rabo. But without spending that much 5 to 6 hours time, by just taking scope as singleton, we are able to bring the similar effect from IOC container. Is it not interesting? Is it not interesting, Rababu? Okay. That in that angle, you have to appreciate singleton scope. Don't worry about how to make Java class as singleton Java class. When I start design pattern batch, there I have to talk about that because that needs 10 sessions minimum to develop perfect singleton Java class. Yes, na boss? But here one scope singleton giving similar effect or not? Okay, I'll take one small example, guys. I have taken normal class, created object for that class. Only one object. I'm not interested to create further objects for that class. Is it become singleton? When it is become singleton class, though you are trying to create more objects, if class is allowing us to create only one object for, then it is called singleton. Then it is called singleton. Got it, my dear? Okay, I'll take one small example, guys. You are working in a library department where bribes will not come, under table amount will not come. You are not taking bribe because in that department, no question of getting bribe. Bribe means what? Unofficial amounts, right? Are you called as sincere officer? Are you called as sincere officer? No. When you are called sincere officer, you are there in police department, revenue department. There is a possibility of collecting bribes from the people, but still you are not collecting the bribe. Still you are not collecting the bribe. Then you are called sincere officer. Yes, na boss? You are in police department, people are ready to give bribe for completing their works, but you are still not taking money from the people to complete the works. Then you are called sincere. Similarly, okay, you created one object, though there is a possibility of creating multiple objects, then class is not called singleton. Class is called singleton. You are trying to create more object, but class is restricting you to create only one object. Then it is called singleton. Convinced, boss? Yeah, look at this. Servlet component is not singleton class because though class allows to create multiple objects, the servlet container is happy with one object in most of the situation. Our servlet component class is not singleton, guys. It sounds like singleton, but not. Singleton scope Spring Bean is not singleton class because though Spring Bean allows to create multiple objects, the IOC container is happy with one object and uses that object by keeping in what? Internal caches. By keeping in what? Internal cache of the IOC container. Internal cache of the IOC container. Right now, boss? Super. Okay, listen. How to develop perfect singleton Java will be discussed in design pattern batch by spending 10 sessions. I know out of all the, after listening all these things, you will be having one question. Sir, how to develop our own singleton Java class? That is not topic of Spring syllabus, Babu. Why? Because if I start creating it, it needs 10 days time. But see the beauty? Instead of spending 10 sessions, once started, I will let you know. Once the design pattern batch is started, I will let you know. Instead of spending 10 days time to create perfect singleton Java class, you just take scope as singleton. IOC container is giving similar effect or not? IOC container is giving similar effect or not? Is it not interesting, Rababu? So it is reducing your time. It is making your life easy. Array. Okay. Listen. In your home, you want to prepare one masala for preparing curry. That masala preparation needs 20 days time. You have to purchase the raw material. You have to dry them under the sun. Then we have to mix this. So total 20 days process. Daily 1 hour, but daily 20 days process. Okay, that is easier. Going to market and purchasing MDH masala is easier. Going to market and purchasing MDH masala is easier. Though purchasing masala from market gives little less tasty. It gives a bit less tasty. But that is the speedy process, na boss. That is the recommended process, right, na boss? Same thing here. Instead of making Java class as Spring Bean class and singleton class by writing a lot of code inside it, do one thing. Create one object. Okay, make the scope as singleton scope. Similar effect will see, guys. Now the question that comes in your brain is, when should we take Spring Bean scope as singleton scope in Spring applications development? In the following situations, guys. If class is not having any state, no attribute, no static variables inside the class. No variables means no fields, no static variables inside the class. Tell me what happened. You created 20 objects for that class, guys. All 20 objects are empty objects. You created 20 objects for that class, guys. All the 20 objects are empty objects. All the 20 objects are empty objects. All the 20 objects are empty objects. What do you say, boss? Yeah, instead of creating 20 objects for class as empty objects, create one object and use it for 20 times, na boss? Create one object and use it for 20 times or not? If class is having fixed state, guys, all attributes are final variables. If the all member variables of the class are final, boss. If all attributes are final variables, instead of creating multiple objects for Java class with fixed state, create one object and use it for multiple times. Simply create one object and use it for multiple times. Create one object and use it for multiple times. Yes, na boss? Okay. Array, inside the class, final variables are there. Final means fixed values. Okay. I created 20 objects for that class. All 20 objects will have fixed data or not? Fixed same data or not? Instead of creating 20 objects with the same data, create one object and use it for multiple times or not? Super, guys. Next. If class is having shareable state across the multiple other classes of the project, okay, if class is having shareable state across the multiple other classes of the project, array, I have a class, there I am storing countries of the world. In that one, some variables are there holding all the 200 plus countries of the world. Array, this tell me, and that class object is required in multiple other classes of the project. Now tell me, if a lot of other classes are creating object for this class, every time those 200 plus countries only will be there. Once in a while, data will be changed, right? What is need of creating multiple objects, Babu? Create one object and use it for multiple times. Create only one object and use it for multiple times. Is it not the better option, Babu? Is it not the better option? So when someone asks you, when should I take Spring Bean as singleton scope Spring Bean? When class is not having state, when class is having read-only state, when class is having shareable state. If Spring Bean is having read-only state, no state, shareable state. Enjoyed, guys? Scope is equal to prototype or at the rate scope prototype. Scope is equal to prototype or at the rate scope prototype. Panchakalyan, in singleton scope, how can we override, Babu? We cannot override, na? Final variables data cannot be overridden. Tell me, total how many scopes are there? 5 scopes are there. What is the scope I discussed so far? Singleton. If no scope is given, what is the default scope? Singleton, right? What is the next scope that we are discussing? Prototype scope, guys. Total 6 scopes or 5 scopes, guys? 6 or 5. Okay. Maybe I counted wrong. In 5.x, 6 scopes, right? Okay, what is the next scope, guys? Prototype. What prototype scope says, you know? For every ctx.getBean method, separate object is created. You call ctx.getBean with bean ID 10 times, same bean ID 10 times, 10 objects for Spring Bean class. 20 times, 20 objects for Spring Bean class. How it is possible? And when scope is singleton scope, objects will not be kept in internal cache of IOC container. Objects will not be kept in internal cache of IOC container. So when object is created first time, if it is preserved, it can be reused. If it is not preserved, do you think it will be reused? If it is not preserved by keeping an internal cache, do you think it can be reused, guys? Do you really think it can be reused, guys? No, not at all. Super, guys. IOC container creates separate object for Spring Bean class for each ctx.getBean method call. Method with the bean ID. That means if ctx.getBean is called 10 times with the same bean ID, then it creates 10 objects for Spring Bean class. Only singleton scope Spring Bean classes participate in what? Pre-instantiation process. That means other scope Spring Bean supports only lazy instantiation. Until you call ctx.getBean method, no objects will be created. Lazy instantiation means object creation happens on demand basis. Array, what happened for singleton scope, guys? The moment container is created, whether you call ctx.getBean or not, object is created or not. That is called pre-instantiation, right? Yeah, when it comes to prototype scope means, guys, no pre-instantiation. Object creation will start for every ctx.getBean method call. Okay, now listen. Other than singleton scope Spring Bean class object will not be kept in the internal cache of IOC container. So for every ctx.getBean method call, separate Spring Bean class object will be created. Super. Now check it out. Strategy DP test, guys. Okay, strategy DP test. I'm switching on this. Okay, you forget about method call. How many times ctx.getBean is called? 2 times. I'm printing hash code and other stuff. I'm changing the scope to protocol. I'm changing the scope to prototype. Wantedly, I'm keeping one small line after IOC container creation. I'm keeping one small line after IOC container creation. Right click, run as Java application. Right click, run as Java application. Tell me, boss. Tell me, boss, what's happening? How many objects are created for Flipkart, guys? Two. Two different hash codes. Both references are pointing to same object. Both references are participating in what? This. Listen. After IOC container creation, I kept one line. After that, ctx.getBean is called. That means first object is called for first ctx.getBean. Second object is called for created for second ctx.getBean. Okay, Flipkart class objects are created for IOC container creation. Sir, then why this blue dot DHL DTDC objects are created? Still their scope is singleton. Still their scope is singleton, right? Is there any pre-instantiation, eager instantiation on prototype scope Spring Beans, guys? Unless until you call ctx.getBean method, no object is created for Spring Bean. Did you notice that? Unless until you call ctx.getBean, no object is created for Spring Bean. Did you notice that, boss? Prototype means on demand. Every time new object. Every time new object. Every time new object was. How many times you call? Those many times. Okay. How many times you call? Those many times. No internal cache, no pre-instantiation. Check it out. What is the scope here, guys? Prototype. Now see the flow of execution. Number one, IOC container. Number two, taking Spring Bean configuration file, right? Number two. Number three, going for component scanning. Going for component scanning, right? Right. Number four, noticed Spring Beans here. In this package, noticed Spring Bean Java classes. Okay. Number five, listen, not noticed any singleton scope Spring Beans. See guys, is there any singleton scope Spring Beans, guys? No. That's why no pre-instantiation. That's why no object creation, no pre-instantiation. Did you notice it? Any object creation activity? For number five, any object creation activity? No. Number six, programmer has called ctx.getBean for the first time. No internal cache, no object creation. Number six, tell me what happened. When you call this, then object is created. Okay. When you number six, guys. Number six, right now, boss. Number six. Number six, it will search in the internal cache. And internal cache is empty now, boss. Number six, it will call search in internal cache. Internal cache is there, but no objects. Empty. So that's why happily creates the object. It happily creates the object referred by FPKT1 and returns that object. Super. Again called number 10. It again search in internal cache. There are not there. Not there. So it will create a fresh object. Okay. Returns to separate reference. Okay. That's why. Is it keeping a prototype scope Spring Beans in internal cache of IOC container? Does it keeping prototype scope Spring Bean class objects in the internal cache of IOC container? No. That's why how many times you call ctx.getBean with bean ID, those many times objects will be created for Spring Bean class or not. Those many times the objects will be created for Spring Bean class or not. When should I take Spring Bean scope as prototype scope as? Exactly opposite to C. When should I take Spring Bean scope as prototype scope? If the state of Spring Bean is changing time to time, if the state of Spring Bean is changing time to time, then go for prototype scope. Then go for prototype scope. Now listen, guys. Time to time. Example, Spring Bean that is going to hold states based on the country that is selected. If country X is selected, states of that country is the state. If country Y is selected, states of that country is the state. So time to time, its state is changing. Then better to store that state in single object or multiple objects. In single object or multiple objects.